Hey homeschool friends, welcome back to the channel. And so you guys, I've taken a bit of a break from making monthly homeschool update videos for a variety of reasons, which we'll talk about some today. But I did think it would be fun to kind of touch base on almost like quarter 3. So how things have been going since the holidays. So actually we're past quarter 3, but really how 2025 has been going. But we should probably hop in because I do tend to get a bit chatty in these videos. So hi, my name is Angie. Welcome to the channel. Welcome back. So like I said, we're doing an update video for quarter 3. Before we hop in, though, I do need to say a quick shout out to Sonlight for sending me a lot of this curriculum. We use a lot of Sonlight, and I will be updating you on where we are in our programs and how it's going, but I always like to thank them. And I also do like to mention the coupon code I have in my description box at all times in case you are looking at Sonlight for next year, which I know it's like curriculum buying season. So just wanted to throw that out there. Okay, so in these videos, I tend to start with chatting about life. And then we talk about family subjects and individual subjects for my kids, which right now we're in 4th grade, 5th grade, and 1st grade. And to hop in, let's just hop into life stuff. It's been an interesting 2025. Not bad per se, like it's not terrible. It's just a lot. And what's mainly going on is that we're moving. And I don't know if I've mentioned that on this channel. Maybe I have, but I definitely have talked about it on my book channel. If you don't know, I do have a book channel where I chat through what I read, but we're moving. My husband got a new job. It's not too far, but it is a whole new town. Like we'll need new pediatricians and new everything. And so this is making things a little bit hard. Now, not bad. It just means that my brain is like squirrel brain, overwhelm, anxiety brain. And so that changes how I approach homeschool. And some of it, I do it very intentionally in what I pick up. And other times I'm just like panic overload and I just, ditch stuff. And so that's really what's going on here. And I feel like my big take home message when I was thinking about this update video, thinking about what I wanted to say, because I'll go through some of the resources in the books and we'll chat and it'll be fun. But what I wanted to make note of to myself and maybe to share with you guys is the ability to reframe failure or what you feel like is failure. Like you're letting everybody down, you're not doing enough. All of those things. It's the ability to reframe that and allow like focused attention is I guess the best way to put it is to stop and like step back and be like, well, what's the most important thing? Because really you can't do it all and you can't do it all perfect. And you'll see as I share some things that we had to drop or we're just not doing well. And I know that we could do this better. And I know that I should not be giving this subject to my child. They're not quite ready to take it on independently, but I don't have the bandwidth to do it to the full extent. And so I'm accepting less than my best and less than their best. But I do that with the idea that I do have some non-negotiables this year. And some of those things are math and spelling and kind of our general like family discussions. So good discussions. Those are my non-negotiables. This year, we're making sure we do those things no matter what. And everything else I can accept. I won't call it failure. It feels like it some days. Some days I definitely feel that more strongly than others. But it's in reality, it's a choice that I am choosing to put my attention somewhere else in this season. And there's always going to be seasons, right? And I've learned that over the 6 years of homeschooling is there's no perfect year. There's just your best. And that's what I'm doing is my best. So you'll hear about all the things that we've dropped. Just wait, you'll hear about it. But let's go with some family subjects to start with, right? I love family subjects. I love Sonlight. We're doing HBLD and HBLA, which are American history in nature. Since the beginning of the year, we've done kind of 2 main sections, and that is understanding these 2 things. So the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights. I actually really liked these books. They're very small, and they're the True books by Scholastic. What I liked about them is they were very simply laid out to help the kids understand what the Constitution is, what the Bill of Rights are, and what the difference is, and how did these things come about. Because this really came post-Revolutionary War when things were getting set up. And so to help the kids understand what that might have felt like, and even though we won the war, there was a lot left to do and how to do this well. And then also to take some of these ideas and move them into modern day. And there were lots of parent notes in the teacher's guide that really helped with some of those ideas, where it would point to like the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms and all of those things, and helping them understand what it would have felt like in, 1780, and how they were just coming off of British rule, and what it feels like in 2025, and where are the overlaps, and where are some current struggles. So I love that. I love that we can talk about these things. So this was good. It was a good framework for setting it up, because I know we're going to come back in more significant detail in, like, say, high school or middle school. And I'm looking forward to that. But this was perfect for their ages currently. And then we did a whole lot of Lewis and Clark. So this was the resource we used. So this is the Lewis and Clark Expedition. We used this for HBLD. So this was for my big kids. And this was set up in story format. It was very understandable. And you felt like you were on the boat with Lewis and Clark. You felt like you understood their personalities when it would talk about these men being around the campfire and all the things, right? And then we also had this picture book from HBLA. This was more for my first graders. But the fun thing is this year I have been mostly just including resources that we're already studying at their level. So they sit around for some of this, but they don't totally get it. And so when we bring it from like this kind of a perspective, we can talk through it. And I really love that. So now when it comes to, though, HBLA history-wise, there are some things we just haven't been able to do as well. Like there's a Heroes and Happenings book, which I didn't bring, where it talks about individual people in American history, which is fantastic. And I read that resource with my big kids 3 years ago. We haven't been able to pick that up as well. And I'm just letting that go. I'm not going to be able to check every box in that curriculum for my first graders. And it saddens me, because it feels like I did a much better job with my older kids, and somehow I'm letting down my first graders, but that's not true. I'm setting aside that belief and believing it not to be true. And so that's where we are with that. But then there's been some other things that have been really neat about history this year. And one of those was the assignment in HBLD, where they were encouraged to memorize an important speech or document in early American history. And I gave them the 3 choices, and I did not show them the length of the choices, because I knew they would just pick the shortest one. And I wanted them to pick the one they were most interested in. And they picked Paul Revere's Ride by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And it was so much fun, because I do have the 2 kiddos, and they were able to do every other paragraph is how I kind of set it up for them. They were able to perform it, and we got a video, and it was just really fun. And so I love some extras like that Sonlight has woven within their instructor's guide, to just kind of bring an extra activity, where it is wonderful to read the books, but it is also really cool to bring out that early poetry from American history. Okay, we dropped the ball with like timelines. We dropped the ball with our lap books. We dropped the ball a bit with our maps. We haven't been as focused on it, but I do bring out the maps when we're reading things. And so it's not our biggest geography year, and that's okay. And I actually just recently had a day where I had them do just math, and then we were going to play catch up, and we did. We caught up in all the timeline stickers that we didn't put in, which was nice because we could use it as a bit of a review. In addition, they did some of the activities in their lap books, and also it was a bit of review. They want that resource to be complete. We just haven't had the bandwidth to do it. And instead of seeing it as a failure, I've just decided to set aside some time to catch up on some of that stuff. Yes, it would be ideal to have done it at the time of learning that material, but I'm doing the best I can. To move on to Bible. Bible has been one of the harder things too. I feel like if we're just reading the scripture and chatting about it a bit, it goes fine. If I tried to bring back in verse memorization, it goes badly. And I feel like I've been saying that for years, and I'm not sure if it's me, and I'm not sure how anybody else is able to have their kids memorize all these verses, or I'm just terrible at it, is how it feels. At this point in time, how I'm feeling about it, I want to let it go forever. I'm just done. I'm done having them memorize verses that they never remember anyway, unless I'm the one like pushing it to get them to memorize it. It doesn't happen, and I'm just not sure what a good answer would be. We've had different setups and different boxes and slowing down, and I've tried so many things, and I'm just not quite sure. So that actually does kind of feel like a failure or a bust, but we'll let it go. Moving on to my favorite. My favorite is the literature, you guys. We've read amazing books. Sometimes when I'm like, oh, we're not doing enough, then I looked at all the books we've already read, and enjoyed. And yeah, we're doing lots. And so we finished up Johnny Tremaine. We weren't able to get all the way through it before Christmas break. So we finished Johnny Tremaine and the kids loved it. We then read Tolliver's Secret. And this was just a short, sweet book about the bravery of this girl. And she was acting as like a spy for the Patriots and having to get on this boat with these British soldiers. And it was just a really good story. And then one of our favorites has been Carry On, Mr. Bowditch. Now, I had no idea what this book was about. I've heard of it before. I loved how it gave a glimpse into this time period, which is that post-Revolutionary War in Salem, Massachusetts, when there was so much commerce that was being done via boat. Boats would go to India and trade and pick up different items to bring back to the US. And I thought that part was fascinating. And so did my kids. But what I feel like really stuck out to us was the character of Mr. Bowditch and the character of him as a child and some of his disappointments and how he rose up above them and how he taught himself and how he was just tenacious instead of a victim. And we talked a ton about that and loved it. So I loved that book. And then we were also with my twins. We have some read alouds left from HBLA and HBLK, all the ones from those two levels. We read Adventures with Waffles, which was a favorite of my big kids, and it was a favorite of my twins. And so this is a great example of how the older kids will kind of slowly wander into the room whenever I was reading this, because they think it's hysterical. They remember reading it. And then they're supposed to be doing their math, and then you hear them kind of creep closer to listen to the chapter as I'm reading to my first graders. And so it was pretty special. That's one of the reasons I love Sonlight, right? And so currently we are reading 20 and 10 though with my littles. And so that's our current read aloud. But as for current read aloud with my big kids, what we were supposed to read next after Carry On, Mr. Bowditch was this book, is Justin Morgan Had a Horse. Now, I decided that they are going to just listen to this on audio because I was just getting overwhelmed and I wanted something fun and easy. And I totally did this last spring too, is I busted out a dart. Actually, this isn't a dart, it's an arrow. So we started reading Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. I love this book. Like, I love the series and I was waiting to like enjoy this with my kiddos. And so we're like halfway through the book and we have been using the arrow guide and it's been really good. Now, Brave Writer, I go back and forth. I vacillate on my Brave Writer, but there's parts of this that I really like. What I really appreciate is how the text is taught. So there's always like a copywork passage, and then it talks about how to talk about this passage. So what I love is it really brings to life those passages, and it really brings to life the author and what they're thinking and how they're playing with language and how maybe they're not following grammar rules, but they're doing it for a specific purpose and it makes an impact with the writing and how you read that sentence, right? And so that's exciting for my kids. My kids think that's fantastic. And we have some amazing discussions about like B.B. Alston and what he was trying to say here and how does that relate to your life. So I've loved that about using this arrow, and it's been really worthwhile to just take a little bit of a break from historical fiction, which we love Sonlight's historical fiction, like I've said, but sometimes you just want something fun. And so we are using Amari as a read aloud for currently. Now, to move on to science a bit, this has been another like thing that has fallen off a bit. Now, this whole year, I have been allowing my oldest to read the science books for Science D from Sonlight, read it himself and answer the questions. Now, he does a pretty good job, especially if I check him and he knows I'm going to check him and I make him redo some stuff. Then my daughter wanted to do it and she's a little less capable, but I have been so overloaded and overwhelmed that I'm like, just fine, just read it, answer the questions. And she doesn't do nearly as good a job. And part of me worries that she's not actually getting anything. But then the other part of me realizes I can't pick it up right now. I can't make that a priority right now because the priority, again, is teaching my twins to read, spelling, and math. Those are my priorities, as well as good family discussions. And so none of that is like science at this moment. So I'm just letting that go along with experiments. Oh gosh, I just quit. I stopped doing them. Once we got back from the holidays, I just couldn't pick them back up. And I love the science experiments. I really do. I just feel like our evenings and our weekends are completely taken over with trying to like fix the house and stage the house and get it on the market and all the things that I can't. I can't pick it up. And so we aren't. We're letting that one go too. I would say though, Science A for my twins has been really good because it's just reading and discussing and reading and discussing, and they are fun to chat science with. They enjoy it. The things they say, I just love. So I guess that's been good. That's not a failure. And neither is Science D. I just feel like I wish we could have deep dived into some of those topics a little bit more, but again, I have to remind myself how I view elementary science. And I view it in a very delight and exposure sort of way. And then once we hit middle school, we take it a little bit more seriously, which is the next video coming out is my science for middle school. It's kind of a flip through. So I view it differently and I need to remember that. So for readers, for my big kids, because the readers go with Sonlight, is they've been fine. They read Sarah Witcher's story, which has to do with a girl in Massachusetts that goes missing. It was good. They read Nyanuki, which my oldest did not love Om Costo. That was his actual one veto book for the year, which I think I talked about in my last update video, where I'm allowing them to switch out a book. But he liked this one a lot more, probably because it was a little bit more action-packed and stuff. And then they just finished reading this book, The White House is Burning. And so this was a reader for them. And it was fun to hear kind of what they got out of it and what they understood the War of 1812 to be about. Then this book. So Fever 1793 was technically a reader. So this is for them to read. I decided, because I love infectious disease and pandemics and things like that, that I wanted to read it out loud to them. And so that's what we're doing is we're reading it out loud. We actually have it on audio, listening to that as well as the Justin Morgan one. So we're trying to utilize what we can and the resources we have, which is the library. And I'm going to talk about the reader for my twins in their section because I have some tips for Rebecca readers. So hang tight for that. But I think that's really it, family subjects. Now to move to some more individual subjects, I'm going to talk maybe about my 5th grader and 4th grader at the same time because they share a lot of curriculum and it'll make this video go a little quicker. And I know these can be long. Let's talk about writing first because they are doing similar things. For the majority of this school year, we have been using Sonlight Language Arts. My oldest is using the Language Arts D that is associated with History, Bible, Literature. And my daughter is using Language Arts 4, but she is reading the readers from D. So she's staying with the readers that associate with history because I think that's really important. But her skills in composition are a little less than my son's. And so she does better with those assignments and it's just fine. And with Sonlight, you have kind of a copywork or dictation day and then a bit of mechanics, and then a composition section. The composition section, I do like the prompts and the assignments for how they're teaching to write. I end up skipping some we take 2 weeks instead of 1 week, but I do appreciate them. Now, when it comes to their little bit of grammar and the copywork, those are good too. I feel like a little bit more impressed with, say, like a Brave Writer. But then when it comes to Brave Writer writing projects, I'm not as impressed with, or maybe it's just the problem I always have with Brave Writer, is I never quite know what to do with them. So we were working on the Imaginary Continent or Island project. And, you know, on one hand, the kids love it. They're like, yay, a project. And this is really fun and imaginative. And I'm like trying to help them with it. But then I'm like, where's the writing? There's like no writing instructions. Yeah, their imagination is great. And yeah, they draw really fun. And we talk about research and geography and how to label a map. But the writing just feels like either I don't understand the point in some of these projects. I feel like I'm a broken record, but I am liking Sonlight's writing for both of them at their level. So I would say that's going really pretty well. And then all about spelling. My son has moved into level 3 and my daughter's still doing level 2 and it's great. I feel like I need to use this program a little bit better. Like honestly, what it is for me, it's probably these beginning sections where it's like review the phonogram cards, sound cards, rule cards, word cards. I'm not the best at that. I feel like that's where I could probably grow a bit. And I've started to use the 20-minute timer to make sure we're thoroughly learning this stuff. But all in all, I feel like it's going really well. The one aspect of spelling that I'm bringing into other subjects that I haven't done in the past is in the past, I've always been like, well, if you're doing math, I'm not going to grade your spelling. You know, like I want you to singularly focus on this and not worry about spelling. And I do hold that in my heart. That's still what I feel. But then sometimes my son comes up with like the craziest ways. Okay, it's not crazy. It's phonetic. The phonetic ways to spell certain things like sphere. You know, it's like C-F-I, you know what I mean? And I just told him that when it comes to vocabulary that is subject specific, he needs to do a better job of figuring out how to write circumference. Because if I literally cannot read it, I don't know what he's trying to say. And he can find those words, especially in Saxon. There's little numbers that link back to the lesson he learned sphere in. So he could just quickly go there, figure out how to spell it and spell it right. And so I'm asking him to do that because of that subject specific vocabulary, that it matters. And so he did not like that. I just was trying to explain to him that if over time you practice the wrong way of spelling something so many times, your brain is going to have a tough time unlearning that and learning the correct way. So you will do yourself a service if you start trying to do it the right way. So that's spelling. Math, my big kids are still doing Saxon math. I don't want to talk about math. I feel like that is actually what caused me to stop making monthly videos, is because I didn't want to talk about math for my daughter mostly at all, ever again. And it's fine. I think I'm learning that there's always going to be things you have to endure. You can't just fix something right away. And sometimes you just need to endure it and see how it falls out. And we probably will be switching. That's actually the only aspect of my curriculum I'm still working on. Like everything else, I've made curriculum videos, like my purchasing videos. I'll link those if you haven't seen them. But math for my daughter, I'm still a little unsure. I'm still working on. But otherwise, she's working on drill team through Saxon. My son's doing Saxon. It's going well enough. Like I feel like they're definitely learning, and I like the spiral approach to Saxon. To move on to some of the other things we have going on. Oh, my son, he stopped using handwriting and typing for that matter. Like I feel like both of those things became super busy work, and I just was annoyed by them. Like he types some stuff anyway. And so just using a typing program, he made it like halfway through The Good and the Beautiful typing 3, and he's just done. He made it halfway through Danielian grade 5, and he's just done. And I said, that's fine. His handwriting is pretty good. My daughter needs handwriting practice, so she's still doing handwriting, not typing, because it was making her melt. She was getting very upset about it. And I'm just like, we're going to start back over in typing 2 next year, and it'll be fine. And that was an example where I cannot hover behind her and make sure she's doing it right. I don't have the bandwidth for that. And so then I feel like she wasn't doing it right or doing it well. And then you just keep trucking, and it kept getting worse and worse. And so that's an example where I just had to stop. Like either I had to do a better job, like I had to do a better job, or we had to table it until we have more space. So that's what we did. But before we get to my twins, I need to talk about The Good and the Beautiful. My daughter has been doing level 4 of The Good and the Beautiful. From the very beginning, we were not using spelling. And we transitioned out of writing fairly early on, maybe like October. I didn't love the writing in here. So we were mostly using it for grammar. And then she loved like the art projects. She loved all the pastels and stuff. So that was fantastic, except it really wasn't. So what happened is this is another example of where she is not ready for independence yet. Either this was a program that was one step too far, because she is a young 4th grader and she wasn't ready for independence, and I didn't have the space to do it with her. And so it just wasn't working. Like we got to like the 3rd unit review, even though I grade her stuff and I have her redo stuff and we talk about it when we can, she was doing the review and like bombing everything. Like she just didn't remember or didn't learn it well. I think I would rather take up something like Sonlight and just work with her on the mechanics that we see in the copy work, or something like an arrow guide and work on understanding when to use commas and actually have an example of when to use commas than something like this. And so I don't know, this is kind of where we get to this point in the year and I almost am like, I'm going to just do better next year. And so we're pretty much done with again the beautiful. I don't think I'll use it again. I mean, it was one of those programs I wasn't sure when I first started it. It's very unique to her. I knew my son would never use it. And now I'm not sure if it has taught her very well. And I don't know if it's necessarily the curriculum's fault or the fact that I couldn't be there or her personality or all those things. It just didn't work. It just didn't work. So we are putting that aside. And so the last thing we're going to talk about is my twins. And honestly, I think they're doing amazing. I also know that they take a lot of my bandwidth. That is where my focus is. We spend a lot of time on phonics. We spend a lot of time on math flashcards. And it's good. It's what they need. They're progressing little by little. I love the way Abeka teaches these skill subjects, these early grades, because it's very spiral and buildable and just baby steps at a time with a lot of practice. It helps. Now, we don't follow the instructions to the letter. We don't even kind of come close. I'd say I do more with the phonics than I do with the math. Like the math, I really just kind of skim and then remind them of a few things and then have them do their worksheets and maybe practice some flashcards. But we do have some really good resources where I can hold up like a dozen eggs and we could talk about and remind ourselves about a dozen and things like that. So I have all the good teaching resources, which really helps, but I don't use that guide like it's written, and we don't have extra practice like it says. And same with the phonics. We don't have evening homework. We don't read a book twice a day. We read a book once a day. And so I don't follow their exact instruction. I just make sure we're in the section of this book that is practicing the current special sounds that we're working on. For a couple tips for this. So if you are thinking about Abeka or you're drawn to Abeka Phonics, one, I highly recommend it. I think I even made a video about what I love about Abeka Phonics that I stand behind. It has taught all my kids to read, and these guys are pretty much there. They're doing so well. What I do though, is I take my pencil and like, as we're reading, I am circling special sounds. I'm saying, oh, that's a 2-vowel word. So I'll put the line over. And so I'm actively writing in this book in pencil to help them with their reading, because yes, they're supposed to recognize it and see it. And sometimes they do, and I won't circle it right away. But I also don't want them to be so hindered by all of these special sounds and seeing them that they can't read it either. So that's really helpful. The other thing I do with these readers is I read every other sentence. So I'll sit with one and I'll read a sentence, they'll read a sentence, I'll read a sentence, they'll read a sentence. And it just helps us read maybe a little bit more than is assigned, but not even some days. Some days they're just fatigued and they're done after doing like a lesson plus some worksheets and then ending with our reading, that we probably would benefit from doing this at a later time. I just am working with the big kids by that point. Just the nature of my family. I don't have super independent kids, and I still have some younger, more needy, like learning to read kids as well. So that's what we're doing. I still love Abeka and they're still doing so good. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's my update. We're doing well. All in all, I feel like I'm really proud of my kids. I'm proud of myself for trying to catch negative thoughts and trying to reframe and try and just accept my limitations in the beginning of 2025, because it's just been hard, and that's okay. That's life, you know? And so I hope this has encouraged you a bit or landed with you. Let me know if you also experienced some of these thoughts and doubts and all the stuff I've been chatting about. But if you don't necessarily have anything to say, maybe leave me like a chick or a duck or something very spring-like as an emoji down below, just to let me know you were here. Let me know also how your 2025 has gone, because I love hearing from you guys. So give the video a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next homeschool video. All right, guys, take care. Bye.